This is a Peppa Pig cursed episode. A nightmare is hidden within the innocence, where Peppa and her family are not the only ones awake at night. Stick with me, because today we're diving into something terrifying. You'll never look at Peppa the same way again. Welcome to the haunting of Peppa Pig. Peppa went to bed like any other night, with her teddy tucked beside her, ready for sweet dreams. But when she woke up the next morning, things weren't the same. George Pig woke up and grabbed his toy dinosaur as he always did. But something was wrong. The dinosaur's eyes were missing. There were only empty black holes where the eyes should have been. George didn't know what to do. He tried to tell Peppa, but when he looked back at the toy, it looked as though the dinosaur was watching him. He dropped it immediately and rushed to Peppa Pig's room. But Peppa's mind was already on something else. Peppa was sitting on her bed, hugging her teddy close. But when she glanced down at her toy, the eyes of her teddy were gone, just like George's dinosaur. The empty, hollow sockets stared back at her. "Peppa!" George cried from the doorway. "Something's wrong." Peppa stared at her teddy. This wasn't normal. What was happening? The two siblings shared a nervous glance. They rushed downstairs, trying to forget about their toys. But even then, the house didn't feel safe. The photos on the wall now looked distorted. A family photo hung crookedly on the wall, but it wasn't just that. The faces in the picture were slightly twisted. It was disturbing, as if the pictures were watching them. The next morning, something worse happened. Tiny black buttons were scattered by their beds. "George," she whispered. "Look, these buttons, where did they come from?" There was no answer. They could both feel the presence of beings around them, but they couldn't see anyone. In fact, only you, the viewer, can see these beings. That night, as Peppa lay in bed, she suddenly heard it. A scary sound from the corner of her room. It sounded like someone was scraping the walls. She looked towards the shadows. There was something moving in the corner of the room. A figure, but its silhouette was blurred, and then she saw it clearly. The thing was carrying a sewing kit. It had too many arms, far more than a person should have. It was stitching something, its long fingers working tirelessly. But what was it sewing? Peppa's heart skipped a beat as she realized it was stitching her teddy's eyes back into place. The thing looked up, its scary eyes locking with hers. For a second, the room was silent, only the faint clicking of the needles against fabric. Then, the thing vanished. But Peppa wasn't sure if she had imagined it. The next morning, Peppa Pig rushed to the bathroom to wash her face. As she wiped the mirror, her reflection didn't look the same. Her usual cheerful face was gone. In its place, an evil, horror version of herself stared back. Her reflection smiled, but it was creepy and terrifying. She screamed, stumbling backward. "No, that's not me." She turned to look behind her, but no one was there. The reflection, however, didn't move. It watched her. Peppa Pig was terrified when she realized that this wasn't a mistake. This wasn't some freak accident. Someone was collecting the toys' eyes. But why? As the days passed, the toys in the house began to disappear. She couldn't sleep. She knew something was watching her. Then, one night, the truth was revealed. The figure, the one with too many arms, wasn't just a random nightmare. It was the Eye Collector. It was a creature that had been stalking Peppa Pig's family for years, collecting eyes as trophies, feeding on their fear. The sewing kit? It wasn't for mending. It was a tool to tear out the eyes of its victims. Peppa and George Pig were both unable to escape. They finally realized who they were. They weren't alive anymore. They were toys. This entire world was fake. The Eye Collector had made them, trapped them in a world of endless Peppa Pig horror, collecting their eyes one by one. But now, with the last eyes gone, the collector would need to find new victims. Peppa and George stared into the mirror, their reflections smiling back at them, just like before. Remember to like and subscribe if you want to see more lost episodes of your favorite shows. But be careful, the dark corners of your childhood are horrifying.